love her.
Yes, my baby.
And George had, when I was a little boy, he's older than I am. When I was a little boy, we always looked up to him because he was real tall like our grandfather. And somehow, I don't know how it managed, but I caught up with him.
And who told you 20 years ago that you were going to be a bishop? Who told you that?
But one of the things that I really want us to understand is that, and when the two of us were certainly able to talk about it, and that is that we all are descendants of Phineas Brockington and Nora Smith. Every one of us are related to those two people. And we want to share, not tonight maybe, but we want to share with you before, because without them, none of this would be possible. Okay? But we all are descendants of Nora Smith and Phineas Brockington. And you need to know a little bit about them. That is our great grandparents. Okay? That's not our grandparents, that's our great grandparents. And so when you look at your line, especially some of these kids that are running around here, when you look at your line and you say, boy, for instance, at the funeral today, most of the people in the audience were Shirley's grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And I was thinking to myself as I was sitting there looking at them, I can tell them who their great parents are. Okay? And that's very important to know. And the reason why I know a lot is because I asked our parents. I asked my mother and I asked my mother. I was always interested in who my relatives were. And like I said, when we grew up, and we grew up here in Charleston, we went to, George always told me, said, you know, that land of our grandfather, because when I say grandfather, we all share grandfather, okay? We know our grandfather, we know our mother, and we share that. And so when we went by the height where we grew up, and I said, wow, our grandfather, who and his girlfriend was Ann Inez, okay? And then we can now see the Navy Yard where our grandfather worked. And so we got plenty of stories that we could tell you about our grandfather and your relatives. But all of us are descendants. And we're talking in the 1800s, by the way. Okay? We're not talking about 1900s, we're talking 1800s. But it's nice, it's good to know who your relatives are. But so even if we don't tell you tonight, but I'm hoping that at some point we'll be able to tell you how significant this was. Okay? They'll tell you that the Smiths is their only cousin. You know, when we grew up, it's only the Smiths and the Browns. Okay, and some of you your last name is Brown, you say, boy, how did we get hooked up with the Smiths? And that is because actually you always was a Smith, even if you're Brown. Okay, because I heard, for instance, Chris was talking about his grandmother. Okay. But his grandmother was my father's sister. Okay, that's how the Smith and the Brown. But we got some stories we can tell you. Okay, so we hope that at some point we'll get an opportunity and you can ask us questions while we're able to talk. Okay, because it's good to know your history. Okay, good. You want to say something?
Well, I wanted to say, after he started bringing so many things out, our parents had a 3rd grade education. My daddy said he was in the 3rd grade 15 years. Right, George? And he was a chemist, but he got no credit for it. But he was a chemist. He taught George chemistry. And George got his degree, his BS degree in chemistry, because of Daddy.
Nice.
You know, and my mother, when my son Chris was staying with her, he tutored her to the 9th grade. She didn't get to graduate, but he tutored her to the 9th grade. But just to think that our parents had 3rd grade educations, and look what they have produced.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And most of the children.
And by the way, too, Uncle Melvin worked at the VC mill here in
Yes.
Charleston.
He didn't care.
He worked in the chemical plant here in, which was not too far from our house. He walked to work, and he had to go by our house. Yeah, we remember very fondly Uncle Melvin.
One other thing, I don't know how many people know this, but Uncle Sam and Aunt Mary and my mama all went to North Utah Church where we were today.
Yes.
And I have a picture of Aunt Mary holding Evelina when she was a baby. So our history goes deep and wide.
And if you want to ask me a question, there's only one question you need to know. That is, where is George? I'll be on some golf course someplace out there.
You better be on that bus tomorrow.
You better be on that bus.
And then Janice would say, get ready.
Get ready.
But hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him.
Yes,
But
beautiful.
we're all gonna have a good time.
And one thing, as a patriot, one thing I would like to let you know, that the team that put this together, 2 years ago, we decided that we were gonna turn it over to the next generation. We were gonna take a rest, okay? And that team has done a fanatic
They
job.
have.
Okay, and I think we ought to give them a round of applause.
All right, so